Welcome back to the program. We continue with stories on environment. Now, Coca-Cola says it will not ditch single-use plastic bottles because consumers still want them. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, the firm's head of sustainability, Pierre Perez, said customers still likes them because they reseal and they are lightweight. This brings to the fore the environmental implications of plastic to the earth, especially in Africa, who is a major consumer of plastic bottled drinks. The firm, which is one of the biggest producers of plastic waste, has pledged to recycle as many plastic bottles as it uses by 2030. But environmental campaigners argue many bottles will still go uncollected and end up in landfill. Let's discuss more on plastic pollution in Africa. Joining us now is Adewale Adetunji, an environmental health researcher. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me start by asking you, what do you think of this firm's decision to not ditch single-use plastic bottles?
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to your listeners. The decision taken by Coca-Cola not to ditch single-use plastic bottle is a big blow in Africa and a drawback to combating environmental pollution in Africa. This really needs to be deliberated upon.
Yes, and plastic pollution is a major problem in Africa, like you rightly said, especially here in Nigeria. But can we really do without plastic?
Plastic pollution is a major problem in Nigeria, coming from a country with high population. Yes, we can really do without plastic in Nigeria, but the first approach is to educate our people on the harmful effect of this plastic. Plastic takes hundreds and even thousands of years to break down. This is a major problem. So not just the accumulation of this plastic that will lead to groundwater pollution and flooding, this plastic also leave out fragments and they release toxins in the water and the soil. The release of these toxins in the soil affects the biological activities of the soil. It has been shown that the healthy soil is an healthy biological activity. So meaning when there's high biological activity in the soil tends to be of good quality. So when plastic pollution affects the soil, contaminates the soil, the biological activity will not really take place, will be very low, and it will affect the decomposition of plant materials and the release of nutrients into the soil, which plants needs to take up. This will really affect the agricultural and crop yield. Then talking about the seawater. From the ocean, the contamination through the plastic pollution will affect, for example, the sea turtles, the aquatic animals, which will reduce their yield. And when these aquatic animals and the wildlife also take up these toxins, it will also affect the people if it's been consumed. Many aquatic animals have also died due to these various pollution sources. Bearing these few things in mind, our people will really need to take a drastic decision in stopping it. One of the ways to stop it is to put up one of the ways to really stop it is to really put up policies, legislation that will protect the environment from further contamination. Tax incentives will also be put in place.
Environmental health researcher joining us there, Adewale Adetunji. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's move on to the police in Côte d'Ivoire, in the commercial capital, Abidjan. They're clearing out some 500,000 people who live near the walls of the international airport. Now, this comes after the death of a 14-year-old boy who is believed to have climbed over the wall and hidden in the undercarriage of an Air France plane. He was found dead when the plane landed in Paris.
Some tore down their houses, Others just quietly left. But by Monday morning, most had left their homes near the international airport in Côte d'Ivoire's capital, Abidjan. Their exodus follows a demand from authorities that some 500,000 people leave the informal settlement or face forced eviction. The government wants to create a 200-meter buffer zone around the airport to avoid a repeat of the tragedy on January 8, when a 14-year-old boy, Laurent Barthélemy Aniguabayi, climbed up the wall, hid in an Air France plane's landing carriage, and was found dead when it arrived in Paris. His father, Marius, says he's done his best for his child.
I have never wished for my child to go on such an adventure. I have given them the education that I could afford to give them, in accordance with the little that I earn.
A remembrance service was held for the teenager on Friday, January 17, and school friends said he had always dreamed of going to Paris and becoming a scientist. But some residents say the reason Laurent Barthélemy is stowed away is probably the same as why they live in makeshift homes near the airport: poverty, and the government will not compensate them for the move.
Sir, just look. We are clearing off. But where are we going to go? There is nowhere to go.
The authorities have said they will delay the clearing, but the solution, some of those leaving say, is not to render people homeless and increase their desperation, but to give them a means to create a better future.
Well, it seems like a better life is awaiting 17 lions and tigers who were rescued from a life of malnourishment and captivity in a Guatemalan circus. Now, they've arrived at a sanctuary in South Africa. The animal conservation and protection group Animal Defenders International plucked 21 of the big cats after 18 months of persuading the Guatemalan government to enforce a 2018 ban on animals in circuses.
After being rescued from years of mistreatments in Guatemalan circuses, 17 lions and tigers arrived in their new home on Tuesday, a wildlife sanctuary in South Africa. That's after conservation group Animal Defenders International spent 18 months persuading the Guatemalan government to enforce a 2018 ban on animals in circuses. The group's president, Jean Creamer, said the big cats were kept in tiny cages with no room to move, malnourished and poorly developed after being fed only chicken feet. Some had their toes clipped and canine teeth knocked out.
The kind of damage that they've suffered in the circus, their body and their skeleton isn't as good as it would be, but without their claws and without their full teeth, they can't hunt. And so they can't feed themselves. So they can never go back into the wild. They need to be somewhere where they can be protected and cared for.
Creamer said it was the toughest job the organization had been involved in.
It was very difficult when we were in Guatemala. There was opposition from the circuses. They didn't want their animals taken away from them. And we had lots of threats to ourselves, to the animals, and to the operation. And we had to really battle our way through it.
In total, 21 big cats were rescued, with some taken to a sanctuary in Florida.
Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.